Get your cameras out so you can all take a picture of what a millennial looks like. So we're really happy to have Brian here. And I apologize for calling Sarah Sharon earlier. I'm not sure what happened, but that's when you're not a millennial. You're on the very edge of the baby boomers. We tend to forget things like that, so I apologize to her. But Brian Fanzo is our next Fanzo.
Either one, I answer to both.
Great. Brian is our next speaker, and he's the founder and CEO of iSocial Fund, LLC, obviously, a social strategy consulting agency. The fascinating thing, I think, in talking to Brian last night is the number of events and the kind of companies that he speaks to. It's fascinating. He said he's going to do 56 keynotes this year.
Yep.
Amazing. And when he started talking, obviously I was thinking of companies, like Twitter and like other companies. No, it's IBM and Dell World, which is fascinating. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to hear the other side of what we talked about this morning. So a couple more things about Brian. He was awarded the top 25 social business leaders of 2014 by the Economist Intelligence Unit. And I mentioned the number of keynotes he does. He calls them the 3 C's: change, collaboration, and community. So we're very excited, Brian, to hear about the 3 C's and more from Millennial. So come on up, Brian.
All right. So yeah, I am a millennial. I am a pager-wearing millennial. That doesn't mean I have one on. I do not use a pager today. But I am 35 years old. I am right on the cusp. I was born in 1981. And so I did have a pager, and I think part of the millennial reputation, the millennial mystique, is that they're all young. They grew up with Facebook. Facebook didn't exist when I was in college. I graduated in 2003. Facebook actually was rolled out in 2003. And so for me, as a millennial, it's something I wear as a badge. It's something I'm proud to be, but it's also something that allows me to kind of talk to a bunch of different audiences in a bunch of different stages. And the slide you see up there now, I just got back from Denmark, Copenhagen last week. I was in Australia 2 weeks ago. And something that the audience kind of told me, and I love to kind of improve as I go, is they said, Brian, it wasn't about till 3/4 through your presentation that I didn't think you were just a full of crap millennial that wore crazy socks and shoes, drank energy drinks, talked really fast, and I started to believe in what you had to say. So I decided, okay, I need to put a slide near the beginning and kind of set the stage on who I am and my journey. My 3 daughters up there with their favorite Snapchat filters on the top there. I have a background in cyber defense. I worked for the Department of Defense for 9 years out of the Pentagon, helping the U.S. military across branches collaborate and share cybersecurity policies. So that means being the Air Force to share with the Marine Corps, the Army to share with the Navy, so you guys can imagine. If you think collaboration is hard in your organizations, I can give you some stories. That's for sure. So that picture of me on the throne there is actually in Saddam's palace. I traveled to Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan twice, all as a government contractor, helping supporting the active duty military on really allowing them to collaborate and hopefully embrace the change and the tools that we were deploying worldwide. And I, for the longest time, had a dream job that I wanted to be like Guy Kawasaki, who of course built the cult around Apple, or Robert Scoble, who built the cult around Microsoft, because I wanted to be a technology evangelist. And I finally got my dream job. I left the government. I started at a cloud computing startup, which was a data center startup in Phoenix, Arizona, known as IO Data Centers. And I got a dotted line to the CIO and a dotted line to the CMO. And I was responsible for onboarding and new employee engagement and employee collaboration, as well as collaboration and between the employees, the partners, and the client. It was a dream job. I got to work with all these different clients and go help them collaborate, help them embrace change. But the biggest thing that they would say after I left is, hey, Brian, you claim to be a technology evangelist. Half the time you ripped technology out of our company. Half the time you helped me solve a people problem and had nothing to do with technology. And I quickly realized then, about 4 years ago now, that my passion wasn't for technology, and really what I wanted to do and what I wanted to help businesses embrace, it had nothing to do with technology. It had everything to do with change. And I think today, this morning, as you guys have heard across all these presentations, it's a very exciting environment we're living in. It's very fruitful, very change enabled. But I think of change as a result of good decisions and bad decisions that bring us to a point to ultimately make new decisions. And my passion, what gets me up every single morning, is I love connecting great people with great people to do great things. And I'm going to kind of walk you through that and what that means today in this digital environment. Now, it might surprise you, my book is coming out, my first book, not my 10th, I have a long way to go. And this one's been painful for about 5 months of me pushing it together. But the title of the book is A Millennial Mindset. And although I'm a proud millennial, I had no idea when I started talking about being a millennial that so many people were scared to admit that because it came with so much, you were pigeonholed, or you had an idea that you just like to complain and you want to get a first place trophy for not doing anything. And just remember, who gave millennials first place trophies? Baby boomers and Gen X parents. But I actually look at, and what the byline of my book is, I don't really care what year you were born. I look at a millennial mindset and what we're kind of talking about, how we frame this discussion, as it's not the year you were born, but your ability to embrace change, collaboration, and community. And I love, maybe I need to add a fourth C, connections, because I did love that this morning, that connections was included in. So what I want to talk about throughout this next hour is I'm really go over some of these changes. And then I'm going to go through some examples. I've helped launch Fortune 50 live video accounts and Snapchat accounts. I've worked with brands all around the world. I was in Australia working with some entrepreneurs there for a social goods startup on how they can embrace Snapchat to grow their audience. But you'll notice the theme of this presentation, the reason I'm here, it has more to do with a change in mindset than it does with the technology. Because the truth is, I went to YouTube University. I graduated with a computer science degree and web design concentration. The only job I've ever quit in my entire life was my first web job when I realized I didn't like writing code for someone else. And then I worked in the Department of Defense, and really what my focus was translating geek speak, which meant I could take what the developers were doing behind the scenes, what the kids or the Gen Zers are doing, and my 3 daughters are 6, 5, and 2.5, so I know that the younger age, and I tried to translate that into business value. I got to present at the Pentagon every other quarter for 4 years and explain to them what we were doing in social business, how we were pushing collaboration forward. Because ultimately what they wanted to know, and I think as an overall platform, is nobody buys technology for technology's sake. We buy technology. We employ employees to deploy technology across the board for the experiences that you're able to create. And I like to think of these 4 major driving forces that have really driven change across the board. Social media, or social in general. Mobility, without question. As you guys heard, I carry 5 devices. I only have 3 on me today. The idea of analytics or big data, and then cloud. And funny enough, I was told that you have to have a niche to launch a podcast. And I really love a challenge, which is why I love talking right after lunch. And so I decided to launch a podcast called Smack Talk. So you guys can check it out. We've been doing it for 2 years. Social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. And I refuse to be a niche because we talk about everything under the board. And really, we focus on how do we relate all of this change to the business. So first off, social media. So social media for so many, and might be for you still today, is what your kids do. It's where people talk about very funny cat videos that go viral. Maybe social media is where you turn on during the debates on Twitter the other night and you see active conversations. But social media for so many is looked at as another channel, a broadcasting platform. Well, today, that millennial mindset, those digital natives, social media is who they are. Social media is their communication channel, it's their conversation channel, it's their news outlet, it's their learning environment. I said I went to YouTube University. I can still remember when a thought leader in the social business space retweeted me back and said, "Brian, I'm so glad that my book had an impact." I literally ran around my entire apartment, like fist pumping, like, oh my goodness, this author that helped me change my business tweeted me back. That's the kind of impact it had on me. And as I'm going to talk through this, I'm going to relate things to myself as well as to the businesses I work at, because I have a weird luxury. I was hired to be an IBM influencer about 5 years ago. And as an influencer, I didn't even know what that was. When they told me I was an influencer, I said, what does that do? What am I doing? Because no one grows up and says, I want to influence people. That kind of sounds creepy, right? It's like, I'm not sure if I want to influence people, but I had the luxury of not only being an influencer, and I still am today, but then also then helping them build strategy, helping them connect with the right people. And now ultimately I have a company that does that worldwide for all kinds of Fortune 500 brands. So I'm not going to talk about it as if it's a vision, as something that we have to think about in the future. I'm living proof of what is happening today and what we need to think about in the future. And I'm going to walk through change because trust me, it's not an all or nothing solution. But when you look at this, social media users have risen by 176 million from last year. 1 million new active social media users are signing on every single day. So don't listen to the pundits, don't listen to the people that tell you maybe social media is a passing fad. If they're still talking that, I suggest probably turning off whatever they're talking about. So you have social media as the conversation platform. To me, the biggest single driver is mobility. We now have, I remember growing up, my dad owned a peanut brittle company in Norfolk, Virginia, and I remember the day he told me he had a fax machine. I was like, that's cool. He has that in his office, and the next time he told me that his work bought him a cell phone. And I always correlated growing up that the coolest technology, the latest technology, existed at my dad's work. It existed in our work. Well, now, every employee, every person has that latest technology. Everyone has the access to this power that's in this device. And not only is it a device that allows us to connect, but it allows us to have conversations. It's my lifeline to the world. The funny part is, I couldn't even tell you where the phone button is on this phone. Because I don't even use that aspect of the phone. The phone icon is one that, to me, is missing. And for the next generation, you actually see my 2.5-year-old daughter right there playing with her. That was my original iPhone. That's the iPhone original that I jailbroke and let her use. And she has some games on there. And the new generation looks at mobility not as another device or something they carry with them. It's part of who they are. My 6-year-old, when I asked her, she asked me a question. I said, I don't know what the answer is, hon. She grabbed my Apple TV remote. I have the new Apple TV, and she holds down the button and starts talking to the remote. And it freaked me out, and I'm the guy that loves this thing. I said, what are you doing? She's like, well, Daddy, I heard you last time that you need to look something up. You just talked to Siri on Apple TV, and Apple TV Googles it. For her, Google isn't even going to a computer anymore. Google is the answer to everything. Even Daddy doesn't know. Google's answering it for her. And she was asking me about the frozen castle or something. So when you look at this, and you look at the idea that the average consumer is looking at their device 58 times a day, I probably am 58 times before I even get my girls out of the house in the morning, you have to put mobility not in a mobile first. It is a mobile now world. When you're looking at data analytics, I heard a lot of conversations this morning about analytics and understanding our employees. Do you know how many of your employees primarily engage on a mobile device? Do you know what the most popular mobile device is within your business? These are things you have to take into account. I can tell you 71% of the people that engage with me on Twitter are doing it from a mobile device. Of those 71%, 58% of them are using an iPhone. All of that data exists for me on Twitter. And what does that mean for me? Well, when I'm creating content, when I'm creating a video, when I'm using mobile links in my tweets. Because if I know how my audience is consuming it, and I know their primary way, I'm going to make sure to deliver that. And one of the themes you're going to see across this is the biggest element we have to understand is keep it simple, stupid. We have to go to where your customer is. You have to make it easy for them and allow them to be enabled. There's a Walmart near my house in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and it does not have Wi-Fi, and it has a tin roof, and I cannot get a signal. I drive to a Target 11 miles past that to shop every single time. Now, nothing I'm buying has to do with my mobile device or my Wi-Fi connectivity. But for me, when I'm comparison shopping, if I decide to get an HDMI cable, the first thing I'm going to do is look at Amazon and see how quickly I can get it, how much it costs there. Or if I know that I need to get in contact and message somebody in my family and say, hey, do we need more milk? I want to be able to have, I crave that connectivity. And so the customer used to be dumb, right? Think of it this way. Look at Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, he would have asked his customers what they wanted when they had horses. What would they have said? Faster horses. If you would have asked millennial customers today what they want, they're going to tell you what they want, how they want it, what colors they want it in, the personalization availability, how connected they want it. Because we have the access to data and information at our fingertips, usually in our pocket. And for me, usually it's in my hands, because it's a kind of an extension of my hand. So when you're looking at data analytics, when you're starting to understand your customer now has as much, if not more, information than you. Think about it. If you go to a Best Buy and ask a Best Buy employee to give you some advice, or you overhear them talking, you realize, I know more information than that person does by simply Googling, right? I now can comparison shop. When I go into a brick and mortar store, the brick and mortar stores that I'm working with for building out influencer strategy, they might not even sell a product online. But they realize their customers are so smart that their first impression, their first opportunity to make a good first impression, happened long before they walk into that brick and mortar store. So your customer today not only is no longer dumb, is smart and enabling, but they're greedy. Because we're living in an on-demand world. Think of it from Netflix perspective. My daughters are confused by commercials. When they see a commercial on the TV, it just does not make any sense why there's a commercial. Now, I like on-demand, and the fast-forward button is something that I treasure. But when you look at that mindset, a digital native, when they look at a commercial, it interrupts what they want to consume. So for them, it's a nuisance. It's something that they don't even want to deal with anymore. My daughter will even say, Daddy, don't go to the channel, go to the thing off your computer. And they're spoiled. I can fast forward in like 6 seconds. There's an element now where we're living in the on-demand generation. And that means personalization. That means when I go to your website and I've already submitted my email address, my first name, my last name, don't ask me again. Because you already have that. When the idea of targeting, I love when Facebook on the right-hand side said, I'm a big Converse Chuck Taylor fan, and they'll say, Brian, you left in your Converse cart, you left your shoes there. Do you want to purchase that? I'm like, ooh, thank you. You targeted me with an ad, and it actually adds value. Because this generation is looking at it and says, if you increase my experience with what you're presenting me, I'm okay with it. But if you interrupt it, if you disrupt my experience, not only am I not okay with it, but more than likely I'm going to eject from whatever I'm doing. So that doesn't matter if it's your website, if it's your content, if it's your app that you develop. The sharing economy, I watched the Airbnb TED Talk on the way here from Washington, D.C., and it was really inspiring to hear how the Airbnb story came together and the whole idea that there was plenty of other people that were willing to share their living room with strangers, but the problem was we assumed and we always knew that stranger equaled danger. And so how do you build a website that establishes trust? How do you build a company that lives in a digital space that really just rents out existing free landscape that establishes trust? And in that keynote, he walks through all of the different things. They want someone with a reputation, someone that has history, just like in eBay. When someone has a reputation that has been kind of deemed by their other peers, you're more willing to trust them because someone else told you that they have value. For me, all of my speaking gigs, and I'm extremely fortunate, almost 99% of them come from word of mouth. Someone that leaves this presentation, tells their boss to hire me. As much as I love SEO, as much as I love digital and social media, so much of it is focused on people, trust, and sharing. And you have to understand that as we move forward in the millennial mindset. So I'm going to walk through a couple of things that are really important and I think that we have to take away. First off, community is the future of business. And when you think about community, for the first time I've gone to an event this year that there was more people, or let's just not even say more people, someone other than me preaching the power of employee engagement, very good job, power of employee advocacy. This was an amazing morning for me because I can tell you, the events I go and speak at, most people are only targeting new customers, marketing and selling to new markets. I want to reach millennials. And yet they forget the most important aspect of their company. The reason that their company is great, because they have great employees. And so when you think about community being the future of business, community is not just those that you're out there trying to outreach. It's your clients, it's your partners, it's the reason you guys are in here in this room. It's the reason most people, when you're going to get a feedback form tomorrow, you say the most powerful piece. The thing that I love the most at this event, unfortunately for me, was not the people on stage. It's the connecting. It's the building of community. It's collaborating in the hallway. And that element, and why I say the future of innovation is collaboration. I have a keynote that I give all the time, and I believe we are greater than me. And together, we're going to cure cancer. Together, we're going to solve these things. But right now, and it's the culture that we've lived in, if I own it and I get hit by a bus, screw everybody else. The new culture is, if I share, if I open and collaborate, what are the possibilities? A millennial doesn't look at sharing information online as a bad thing. They look at it and say, what are the opportunities I'm going to be able to have? Now, I work in cybersecurity, so I'm not saying that's always a good thing what you share. I'm going to talk a little bit about understanding transparency, but the last but not least part of this is future of marketing is social good. People want to work for a company that they believe shares their vision, shares their purpose. People want to buy from a company that isn't making the world worse off than it was when you got there. And for many of you in the room, you're probably thinking, well, all this stuff around the millennial mindset, Brian, I agree. I'm that same person. On the back of my book, you take a little test and you get a millennial card. Because millennial has nothing to do about the year you were born when you're thinking of it from this mindset. It has everything to do with being open to change and collaboration and understanding that the people that you were around, the people that you work with, they are making you better. You're doing bigger things because of that. And I said the greatest asset of a company is without question their employees. And part of the reason that many companies that hire me, I work with IBM and Dell, Samsung, SAP, a lot of them look at how do I retain, how do I create a culture? And when you think about it, when you start breaking things down, people go to work as an entrepreneur or for a small business. Not for the things that I'm dealing with right now as a small business owner. Chasing down invoices, figuring out when to hire an employee, keep them as a W-9, the idea that I can't sleep because I feel like some mornings I'm going to throw up and the next morning I'm fist pumping thinking I'm the king of the world. They leave enterprise, they leave big business. Oftentimes, they want to know that what they're doing matters. And we can create that. I love working in enterprise. It was some of my best years. I did not leave to be an entrepreneur because I had a bad experience. I left because I wanted to change more people. And so when you're looking at how do I empower my employees, and the reason I asked that question earlier today is I think one of the hardest things to do is when someone says, Brian, what if they leave? What if I invest all this money and this time into an employee and they leave? Well, the question is, what if they stay? What if you don't invest in them? What if you don't empower them? And they stay stagnant. One of my favorite searches on Twitter, and you guys will learn, my life and business has changed thanks to Twitter. And I had to remove some of my Twitter slides because Twitter would be up next. And I had to remove some of my millennial slides earlier because of the presentations this morning. So most of these slides I'm seeing for the first time as well. But part of what is exciting to me and part of what this means for businesses is I believe if you can make it the fact that, what I heard this morning on stage gave me chills because I want to belong. I feel a part of the Macy's team. I feel like what I am doing is making a difference. Who the hell does not want to work somewhere that does that? That's what we all crave, and I think we can create those kind of cultures now. So when someone tells me culture and they lead with a ping pong table, they're lost. A ping pong table does not create culture. It usually slows productivity and gives someone a nice picture for your website. Ultimately, when you're looking at how do I empower my employees, how do I build these, it comes down to what I like to call my buzzword bingo slide. So how many people, I think every one of these are across your company, right? Every one of these are probably in all of your meetings. How do I build loyalty? How do I make sure that I convey authenticity? I need to build trust. Advocacy is the key. We need to build a community. Where do you start? How do you make this happen? Well, I'm going to walk into a couple of these examples because for me, all of these buzzwords are great and change is exciting, but I can tell you I've learned quickly as a change agent inside of a company that too much change, too much disruption causes you too much time on LinkedIn looking for a new job. So ultimately, when you're looking at all of these pieces, what I believe, what I help, and what we have to look at it is, what business goal am I solving? What new experience am I creating for my customer? And one of the funniest things is, the easiest way to understand what your customer wants and what they're doing is ask and then listen. And it's crazy. Because for me, when you start to break down those barriers and you're willing to ask, it's amazing how, I don't care if you're B2B, B2C, humans and people want to connect with people. How many times do you hear people talking about, well, we're a B2B marketer, we're a B2C company, and this is your professional website. This is your professional social media account. This is my personal one. Your consumer does not think about professional and personal. Your consumer does not care if it's B2B or B2C. Ultimately, most of the time, it comes down to a weird conversation that says, who influences the influencer? One of my favorite stories in that is, there's a jean company, and their target demographic for this female jeans, is 35 to 45-year-old females. And so they launched a Snapchat campaign, and they were crushing on Snapchat, and I started talking to them. I said, how did you get over the concept of Snapchat's only for the young people? Like, you're targeting 35 to 45-year-olds, that's who's purchasing your jeans. And she quickly looked at me and said, I'm not targeting people that are purchasing my product. I'm targeting the people that influence the purchase of my product. So who do 35 to 45-year-old females majority listen to? Their kids, their neighbors, people that are wearing the trendy clothes down by the school bus. And so ultimately, what they did is they didn't focus on the end consumer, or the person making the purchase. They focused on who influenced the person making the purchase. And so this is probably my favorite slide. If you can take anything out of this entire hour that I talk too fast and I cover way too much information, is that these are the two things that are driving most of the change. Perfection is a fairy tale. How many people here can scream out a name of a brand that they believe is perfect? Besides Sitel, of course. Nobody. How many people have a friend or a thought leader, or they think of somebody that is a perfect person? So why in our marketing, why in our branding, why in everything we do we try to achieve perfection? If we don't believe perfection is accomplishable, we do not believe that perfection is needed or anyone is perfect, why is it something that we put as a mark? And I believe when you take down the mark of perfection and you start focusing on what can I enable at the right time? Because real time is easy. Real-time marketing, real-time engagement on Twitter, all those things. But when you're able to actually take down the barrier of perfection, you're able to deliver an experience at the right time. And the right time is the difference between someone making a purchase and not making a purchase. The second part of this is control is an illusion. You cannot control your message. You cannot control what your employee is doing. The amount of people that have told me, Brian, I love what you're talking about, but my employees, none of them are on social media. Really, none of them. None of your employees are in social media. Okay, have you asked them? Have you looked? No, I just know. It's not for us. I love that you're talking about that stuff, and it sounds great, and you're gonna mention Red Bull and Uber and all these trendy companies. That's not for us. Well, guess what it is? And here's the thing. If you're not telling the story yourself, if you're not empowering your employees to tell your story, you're letting everyone else tell the story for you. So it's not about controlling the message, but I like to use a term I call swim lanes. If you think of swim lanes, and this is what I did in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity was all about all or nothing. We moved our policy management inside the Pentagon. We had a 6-character password requirement, and thanks to our friend Snowden and a lot of things that happened right before I got there, we decided we need to reevaluate that. And we implemented a 32-character password that could not contain a single word in the dictionary. Now that's security, right? We were less secure. Why? Every person, not every person, majority of people wrote it on a sticky note and put it underneath their keyboard. So now rather than a 6-character password that was in their head, we gave them 30 characters of crazy confusion that they could never memorize. It had to change every 2 weeks. All of a sudden they had required them to write it down and put it in the most least secure place possible. We were trying to control that element. Instead of understanding the data, understanding how we worked, and we ended up changing it to a 12-character password that changed every 60 days. It could contain any words that you needed. You just had to have one capital, one number, one special character. And the security went drastically up because we weren't trying to control. We were trying to better understand. Now, I love and I believe that I am one that, every time I get on stage, I suffer from FOMO. And I love it. The fear of missing out. When a new app comes out, my new iPhone 7 is sitting at my house right now. I did order it. When these new things come out, I jump right on there. I'm so excited. I've jumped on every new technology that I can even imagine. I already pre-ordered the Snapchat glasses, if you guys saw that. They're going to allow you to do some AR, VR. I used Pokemon Go, and I didn't even know what Pokemon was. So I'm a millennial that had no idea what that concept was. But with all of this noise, the question becomes, how do I cut through the noise? And one of my favorite things is I work with big brands, and they'll say, Brian, we're going to cut through the noise by doing exactly what Red Bull does. Or are you just going to sit in the exhaust of Red Bull? I'm going to cut through the noise by doing a Gary Vaynerchuk video series and doing exactly like what he's doing. Well, are you becoming an echo chamber? Or are you finding ways to understand how other people and how your customers are using these platforms and then doing it with what you do best? So when I look at all this noise, the reason that my clients and what I'm able to help my clients identify is I never tell them what technology to use, what social media platform. I will not tell, you guys can ask me any questions when I'm done here. I will not tell you what platform you should be using unless I understand what is your business goals? What does success look like? Who is your target demographic? Because with those things, I can now work backwards and understand where your audience lives, where they're engaging, how they're consuming. But too often we look at these technologies and these shiny objects, and for a guy that loves and suffers from FOMO, we have to focus less on the FOMO and more on what we can provide. But guess what? Our what is boring. Because you guys are probably sitting there right now, okay, Brian, maybe I'm understanding you, maybe I believe you, but what am I going to post on Twitter? What is my company going to post on our YouTube channel? What kind of videos are we going to create? And you'll probably go back to your drawing board maybe, and you'll decide, okay, we need to talk about this product that we just created. We need to talk about this brand new service. We have a tier 2 help desk now that's 24/7. We need to talk about that. Well, guess what? All of that is boring and nobody cares. Nobody cares about what you do. The reason the iPhone appeared once in the last Apple commercial is because nobody's buying the iPhone just to get another iPhone. We all have gone through the iPhone buying process at least once. We buy it because of the experience it's going to enable. The fact that we're going to have 2 cameras in the back. The fact that it's going to allow me to be more productive. So when you're thinking about content, when you're thinking about social media, when you're thinking about empowering your employees, we have to get away from the idea of talking about what we do. We need to focus on why you do what you do, which is what I've heard here on stage through all morning. You need to talk about how it will impact your customer. How will it impact them? They don't care that it's a new iPhone. But if you tell me, or you tell, one of the people on my team, the first thing she told me the reason that she wanted it is she said, you know what, Brian? I really am tired of my phone not unlocking with my fingerprint. That's the only reason I'm upgrading. And for her, the experience has nothing to do with the hardware, the camera, and all of the what. It has about how it will impact her. And then last but not least, what will it do for your life? So when you're looking at these things and you're looking at this new technology, I have something I call the 3 T's. And the order, the reason that there's numbers next to them, is the order is more important than the words itself. I've deployed lots of cybersecurity solutions around the world. I've deployed social business tools like Yammer and SharePoint and Jive, and we've implemented tools like Sprinkler and Spreadfast. And we always look at these tools, and one of the biggest problems is we look at the tool, and then we try to solve a people problem with a tool. How many people have seen that, right? And then the tool fails. We go back to the software company and go, your tool sucked. We need a new tool. And then we go deploy the whole new tool again, and we have that new tool in there, and then it fails again. And then we say, we must be looking at the wrong tool. No. We're trying to solve a people problem with technology. And so I believe it starts by building trust between you and your consumer, trust between you and your employees. When you're deploying a solution, and how many people have heard, everybody in our company sells, everybody in our company markets. Then if you ask 10 people in your company, what's the story of your brand? What's the value proposition? You're going to get 10 different answers. So how do you convey that trust? How do you empower them? You have to implement training. Training is not a one-time event. Training is a continual process, and I will put this on every employee, and I know a lot of employee presentations. Employees are just as guilty at being bad at training as brands are with training employees. Because to live in this rate of change that we live in today, it's just as much your responsibility as an individual employee to train yourself and understand what you need to be successful as it is the brand that's trying to make it happen. When I hire people for my team now, I don't even care what experience they have with the technology. I want to know they have a mindset that is open to learning and listening and training on the go and the ability to roll with the punches. And then last but not least, the technology is the easy part. It allows us to scale. It allows us to do great things. It allows us to reach audiences, use paid social, and do things that we never would have imagined before. But unfortunately, when you start with the technology and you don't establish trust and your employees are not trained, it makes it extremely difficult. And so I created this philosophy I call think like a fan. And my last name being Fanzo, it kind of worked perfectly. And I did not change my last name to match that mantra. That was, in Australia, they firmly believed that I changed my last name. But with all of this noise, with all of this content, with all this changing consumer, people are craving access. Access is what we're craving. We want access to people. We want access to places. We want access to products. We want access to experiences. And if digital, if technology, social media is not giving me that access, why am I wasting my time on it? For the longest time, social media has been about broadcasting, about pushing your message, about building followers on different channels. The reason I believe community is the future of business, and I will never talk about one channel over another, is because technology is going to change. How we use the technology is going to change. I'm working with a team that's doing an entire virtual reality video. We're doing a whole script around what it's like for the kids that are doing around child trafficking. Because child trafficking is an emotional for people that support it and put money behind it. And if you're able to take someone and put them in what it looks like to sit in a closet for 3 days, or you're able to create this new experience that is something that you take the headphones on and you can't help but feel bad and want to actually contribute. This idea of new technology, it's changing so fast. Think about it. My dad, every morning, since I was born in '81, had a giant camcorder over his shoulder. And every Christmas morning, he'd stand at the top of the stairs in Pittsburgh and said, wait there, and he'd go down to the bottom and he'd video record us coming down the stairs. I still don't think we've ever looked at a single one of those. The video camcorder was around for 21 years as the catalyst of that industry, of that channel. The Blu-ray DVD did not make 3 years. The rate of change today is like we've never seen before. So rather than looking and focusing on the actual technology, we have to focus on access. Does anybody know who this guy is right here in the phone picture? John Legere, the CEO of T-Mobile. If you're not following him on social media, I recommend him over everybody. He's the most human, the most authentic. He runs through Central Park with 4 phones in his back pocket and says, if you find me in Central Park running, I'm giving you a free phone. When there's an announcement by Sprint, he grabs his phone, he gets on Periscope, and he tells people what his thoughts are. I have access to a CEO at a level I've never imagined before in my life. He's going to be interviewed on my podcast in 2 weeks because I reached out and had access to him via social media. Now you're thinking, okay, what does that mean? Well, of those 5 devices that you saw back there, that was AT&T for 7 years. And I asked myself, does AT&T care? So I know the CEO of AT&T. Have they ever given me access? Those 3 devices that I purchased are all T-Mobile. Because for me, it allowed me to have a connection, understand who represented the brand, why they actually matter. And that was a massive game changer. We Are Cisco. Cisco is one of my favorites out there. We Are Cisco is a brand mantra that Cisco is putting out where they empower their employees to tell their story across every channel. This is a screenshot from Snapchat. The idea of giving their employees access to their accounts to broadcast on all their channels, that's a scary proposition. And guess what? They're not marketing and selling anything. Well, they're marketing and selling why they love working at Cisco. If you want to look at social media, especially video, there is no bigger play than if you want to look at recruiting and employee empowerment. Because oftentimes when we talk about empowering an employee, everyone's heard, like, hey, we're going to give everybody a $1,000 Amex card. We're going to give all our employees that, that are engaging and that are authentic and that are advocates. And then, we're like, why didn't they get excited? Well, we didn't. We hired all these people because everyone's unique. But yet we rewarded and incentivized everybody as if they were robots. Amazingly for me, I was deploying an employee advocacy solution in a Fortune 50 company, and we were deploying it to 2,000 people out of the gate. Of those 2,000 people, the thing they requested cost the company 0 money. Oftentimes, it was a like on a LinkedIn post, a retweet from their CEO, or a simple message on a post wishing happy birthday from their manager. Understanding the incentivize, understanding what makes your employees tick, and allowing them to tell that story, to me, is powerful. One of my first questions I asked, I love your Friday minutes. I want that public. I want that version of you out there for the world to see, right? Because you're explaining the value, the passion behind what you're doing, the reason you're so excited. You're giving people a feel of what's out there. I can promise you, your applications to work at the company will increase because they have that access to who you are, what you're doing. So many companies look at influencers and think of it as a big spend, as something they have to put money behind. And oftentimes, it just comes down to employing and empowering their greatest asset, which is their employee. Now, I coined this phrase, or at least I think I coined it. If I didn't, I'm going to keep saying I coined it until someone proves me wrong. But I call it participatory content. Because so much TV is about broadcasting. TV is not new. When there's live streams now going all over the place, the idea that we can broadcast to the world is nothing new. The difference becomes in that I can participate not only in the content, but I can help shape the outcome. For example, that picture up there, and for everyone that's sitting right now and saying, this is great, but it's not going to work at my company. Department of Defense, they might have some regulations. They might have some great reasons to use their privacy as a crutch. What they do every other week is they give someone different access to that account, and they take you on a tour of a different facility the Department of Defense is at. They're giving you access like never before. Now the question is, that's scary. Like, what if they showed something that was proprietary? What if they showed something that was classified? Well, just because something is live and participatory doesn't mean you don't have a strategy behind it. And what they do is they plan out the route. They understand where they're going to take people on a tour. But one of the coolest parts are they make it like a choose-your-own-adventure book from growing up. They'll literally say, right now we're going to walk into the mapping department. We're going to walk in where we're doing robotics. Everyone vote. If it's a 1 for a robotics room or 2 for the mapping room, whoever votes the most watching our live video right now, we're going to go that direction. For a viewer, I'm now able to participate in the outcome of a solution. And when you look at that and you want people to create advocacy, why are people such big fans of companies, big fans of sports brands? I'm a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I have a tattoo that says Steelers on it. The reason it's us. When people talk about how would you guys do, it's like we lost to the Eagles. We got killed by the Eagles. That's hard to admit from a Pittsburgh person. But why do we say we? It's because I participate in the environment. The experience relates to me. I'm a part of it. I was born and raised there. My dad instilled in me nothing ever good came from Ohio. No offense to those from Ohio. Well, the second part was Philadelphia is really in New York. That was the other thing. But when you're looking at this idea of how do I create advocacy, how do I build loyalty, how do I understand, how do I let people do great things for us, you have to think of it like a fan and put yourself in their seat. Now, consistency is also important. With all of that noise that's out there today in the digital world, getting found or getting discovered or having people understand what your brand does is really hard. And we like to make it really hard on ourselves when we create a website with some kind of wording on it and some kind of branding and some kind of messaging. And then somebody else creates our LinkedIn bio. And then someone else creates our Instagram bio. And by the end of the day, we're an outsourcing company that does reinvention, digital transformation, customer service, and help desks. Well, if I'm coming in from one of those channels, how do I know what you're doing? Every digital action a brand takes online is part of telling their story. And consistency, oddly enough, is the hardest part for most brands. So there's tools out there. There's one of my favorite tools called Rival IQ. And you're able to put in other brands, your competitors, you're able to put in your own brand. And it scours the internet for every single possible mention of your brand, of your company. And it tells you what's confusing, what's not consistent. Some of the brands that I've worked with, it had their hours wrong. And that site was only visited 47,000 times a month. And yet it said they closed 2 hours before they did. The idea of consistency is kind of weird because it's not sexy. It's not FOMO. It's not telling you to go on Twitter. But part of this consistency comes down to what I like to call show you care. Because for so many brands today, they are worried about screwing up. They're worried about being the next US Air when a social media manager posts something inappropriate. They're worried about Target and being compromised. But if Target had invested in their community and made people that were in their community feel like they cared before they had that breach. When they went and asked for, please forgive us, please trust us again, the answer would have been, yes, we understand, we're part of this journey with you, we're with you. But instead, most brands leverage social media at that scale once they screw up, once they've made a mistake. And there's nothing worse than someone coming and saying, please forgive me, even though I don't ever cared about you ever in my life before. But now I want you to forgive me. Please give me another chance. So for brands, oftentimes it says, Brian, what's the ROI? What's the return? Well, I love that question. I love building out strategy because I'm a data guy, computer science. I don't believe anything can't be proved with data today. But ultimately, you have to start building that community now for what the outcome is in the future. And one of the things that's probably most scary is change, hopefully not like security, is not an all or nothing solution. You don't have to start changing, disrupting everything today. I don't even like the word disruption. I hate that, because to me, that I think of chaos. And I think of how many business owners are going to say, Brian, I still need to serve my clients today. I still need to do the business that I'm in today. Well, change is about baby steps in the right direction. And change is about understanding what's the experience I'm creating today? Where are my customers at today? And I recommend listening and understand for where they're going tomorrow. Because it's not about, hey, do I need to deploy a Snapchat strategy? The question is the people that influence the decision makers, are they moving to Snapchat? Or are they still going to be on Instagram? Or are they going to go wherever their parents are? And when you're looking at how you can do this, what you can build, I'm going to use some of my examples here that I've used. Because oftentimes people are like, well, Brian, how do I invest in the community and show I care before I need to? Most of our old way of thinking was, we build a website, they come to us. The new conversation is, we go to them. The problem is, we as brands can't help ourselves. When we go to them, we sell, we market, we spam, you get an auto DM from somebody on Twitter, you get the amazing LinkedIn message that someone finally, you say, okay, I'll accept that LinkedIn person, and then they send you a canned message that they send every single person. When you go to people and you invest in their community, it's not about what they can do for you. You want to know, what can I do for them? And so some of the great examples are live video. I do live video strategies, Periscope and Facebook Live, for brands all across the board. I help launch IBM's, SAP. I'm the host of Dell World this year, where we're going to do about 35 hours worth of live video streaming. I've done work with Samsung, BMW, Applebee's. Applebee's, we took 25 influencers, and by influencers, people that eat at Applebee's, and we said, go into Applebee's and live stream yourself purchasing your product. We're going to give you a gift card. And we want you just to live stream the experience. Now, that's scary, especially because they had found out that a majority of people that hadn't been to an Applebee's in 2 years left because of a bad experience. But they were so confident in their product, so confident in what their new experience was, they didn't even make those influencers have swim lanes. So they let myself, Sonny, and Vincenzo take over Applebee's.com for 12 hours. And for 12 hours, people all around the United States went into their Applebee's, pulled out their phone, and they live streamed their experience of ordering this appetizer, ordering this food, and shared what their overall opinion was. The crazy part, the powerful element was, it was not scripted. And we had a family that went there with their kids, and they said, first thing the dad said to the mom was, they do free food for kids on Tuesdays? Like, I didn't know that existed. Another one, the mom said, well, our kids can't eat fried food, and they have apples here. These kind of things were organic and real, and that's what builds community. That's what that allows, because last time I checked, how many people here are going to buy a Lincoln because Matthew McConaughey says to buy one, other than the fact he's good to look at? But are you going to go talk to your friend? You're going to go to a YouTube channel. You're going to go watch a piece of content from someone that you trust. And if they say that this Lincoln's a great car, you might buy it. Our influence and who influences has changed. One of the other ones I love is podcasts. Podcasts is a very intimate experience. I have brands that sponsor my podcast and lots of podcasts across the board, because you're reaching an audience on a regular basis, maybe every day, every other week. And you're getting that intimate idea where you're telling someone, and my tagline is, this event is sponsored by SAP. We want to thank SAP for allowing us to convey this message and interview people about cloud computing. I never once talk about what SAP's products are. I only talk about what they're doing in the long run. But eventually I integrate that into the conversation, and then they find out what SAP does that's valuable. Here I actually went to the Super Bowl, And at the Super Bowl, we teamed up with 5 brands. SAP was the catalyst, but we just 5 small brands: IBM, Capgemini, Deloitte, and Intelligence. And we streamed 20 hours of interviews about digital transformation live from the Super Bowl. We didn't talk about any other products, but we talked about the impact digital has on our lifestyle, on our work, on the football game. The Stanford band decided to play about 3.5 feet from us while we were sitting out there in cold San Francisco. The crazy part was that content is still being reused today. When they write a blog and they talk about digital transformation, they say, hey, listen to the interview that Brian Fanzo and Daniel Newman did with our CEO at the Super Bowl. Because the content's authentic, the content is real, the content had value and it's continuing to add value. And then last but not least, establishing employees in thought leadership or even doing things like product placement. SanDisk sent me this, and their only caveat when they sent me this new product was you're not allowed to open it unless you're on live video. Well, that scared me. I replied back and said, are you sure? Because I don't hold my tongue, and I firmly believe that no one product, no one event, no one company is worth jeopardizing my authenticity with my community. So if your product sucks, I'm going to say it sucks. And they're like, no, that's the feedback we want. And ultimately, I had some problems with it. I explained the problems, and I'm doing live video for it. And for them, they were able to see what other people were talking about their brand. Oh, typical SanDisk. That's what always happens on every SanDisk install. Or some people go like, oh, that's rare. You must not have installed it correctly because I've used the product. But they were getting real-time feedback on a live video by simply allowing me to open it and access to my audience. So what I want to convey here is, as we kind of pull this all together, is just finding what success is, understanding that change is not an all-or-nothing solution. When I build out projects for different social media channels, I just want to kind of give you a couple examples here. When I think about Twitter, and I'm using Twitter or Periscope or live video, I don't build out the exact same strategy for Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, because my audience is different. How they consume is different. Even how long they consume, or what they're expecting out of that experience. And I think, unfortunately, when we look at new technology, especially social media, we often look at it and say, what can I do that I'm already doing somewhere else there? Can I take my email marketing, my email template, and just post it to Facebook every day? That's one of our answers, right? Or, I know we create this kind of content for our internal employees. Let's just point it outward. The idea that if you don't know what success is, social media is a nuisance. Social media does not have any value, does not have ROI. But if you understand what your audience is doing there, you understand the value that that channel has, you can create some powerful content. And last but not least, I'm going to ring this around video. Because video has had a massive impact for me. I was not a video person, I was not a video broadcaster. I hosted a video interview show, and live video is this new concept of from your phone, and we're actually live streaming right now on Periscope for a couple thousand people that are watching in the background off of my mobile device back there. The idea that we can actually connect people and give them access to an experience they've never had before, all from a mobile device, is powerful. And the fact that 81% of the internet traffic by 2020 will be video. If you're saying right now we don't do video, you probably soon will be saying we don't have a business. Because video is that enabler of trust. It's the conveyor of authenticity. When you're building a friendship and a relationship and a community on Twitter, I always say it takes 12 to 18 months to establish that if you're only using Twitter as a conversation. In video, it's less than 30 days. Because, believe it or not, the most powerful phrase on live video is why Hillary and Trump are not on it. They don't know how to say I don't know. Because on live video, when someone asks you a question, if you can say I don't know, it builds that authenticity. It adds validity to what you do know. I'm launching with a couple of brands right now. We're creating I don't know pages on their website. Think about that. A brand admitting what they don't know. Well, you're going to have plenty of execs, plenty of board meetings. We're going to say, guys, we do not do this business. We do not know this. This is not what we're doing. Why not convey that outward so that when you are conveying what you're doing, when you are doing great things, that people can actually believe you and understand what you're talking about? That example is Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts actually takes Facebook Live and gives you a tour of their training facility for all of their managers behind the scenes in Dunkin' Donuts. I was already a Dunkin' Donuts fan before that, and it was just some really cool access that you got to see how they make the donuts. But really this idea of participatory content is because John Legere, the CEO of T-Mobile, is able to leverage video, he's able to connect me in ways that I could have never imagined. So now I'm going to kind of give a little bit of an overview of what doesn't work. The idea that we're just going to throw technology at people problems, I've already hit that home. Believing that our customers and employees aren't undigital. Guess what? They are. I don't care if you have a brick and mortar store. I don't care if you have a B2B business that is selling plumbing parts to plumbers. I can promise you that they're making decisions and looking online for so much of that understanding of that company. Treating social media as a checkbox. It used to be a broadcasting channel. It used to be something that we did, and then we give it to an intern and we let them handle it, and then when they screwed up, we fired them because we realized they're an intern, but they should be like our first impression. They should be the storyteller of our brand. They should sell and market us, but we don't empower them. Social media for your customers today, especially those with that millennial mindset, it's not something that they do, it's part of who they are. And that is something you have to understand. And last but not least, understanding that whole piece of where digital fits in. So this is one that I hope you can understand across the board. I don't know is much more powerful than I don't care. And the reason that is so many brands have said, I'm not going to create a website, I'm not going to get on Twitter, I'm not going to have a Facebook page. That way, I control the message. I control what goes on. For your customers, when you're not there to engage, you're showing them that you don't care, and that's how they prefer to have a conversation. You're showing them that you want them to invest their hard-earned time and their hard-earned money, but you don't care about making it easy for them to do. I can tell you Delta is my favorite, and I think Delta's going to be a good example later on. But my entire customer service and every reason that I take this airline is because of how they engage and help me out via Twitter. I oftentimes get a reply in 2 minutes because of the experience that Delta enables. And that's an airplane company that inspires me because of the customer service they provide for me via Twitter. And I can give you plenty of examples of that side. So when you look at this and you look at, hey, my people are complaining, my people are there, my people are having conversations there, why don't I care? And the idea that maybe you don't even know the answers, maybe you don't want to get on live video because you're afraid they're going to ask you a question you don't know. Saying I don't know allows you to have the power of conveying that authenticity and that validity. Acting like you don't care allows them to move on to your competitor. So last but not least, if you're looking out there and you're saying, okay, I'm in, Brian, I'm sold, and hopefully you are sold, and hopefully you guys can ping me for questions later on. We'll be on the boat this evening. But probably one of the hardest pieces is, okay, I understand we need to have a digital footprint. I understand I need to empower my employees. I just don't know what to create. I don't know what to say. I don't even know ask them what to post. This is my mantra. Nobody will ever say that you care too much, you're helping them out too much, or you're turning them into too big of a fan. So when you're creating a content, you're creating a strategy, when you're thinking about what can I share, think about how I can help them. My favorite stories is Lowe's. Lowe's created a Vine video that helped you take a 2-liter milk carton and turn it into something that you can water your plants. Now, isn't that weird? Lowe's, they sell those devices inside of their store. But for them, they knew that what if it was nighttime? What if there wasn't a Lowe's nearby? If they were able to help their client, help their customer solve a problem, when that customer needed something that they actually provided next, they're going to go to Lowe's. They're going to drive past Home Depot. And so the idea of creating content and conversation that helps others turns those people from a customer into a fan, into an advocate. And I can tell you, my dad is not a big fan of social media. He owned a peanut brittle company, like I said, and he messaged me on a live video show that I was doing. He said, son, social media is great, but it'll never replace a handshake. And so I decided to read that out loud on my show because I agreed. I said, Dad, you are 100% right. But when you do social media the right way, when you invest in social media as a channel that connects with people and you show that you care, social media gives you the opportunity to have additional handshakes and turn some of those existing handshakes into hugs and selfies, and that's what Fan's all about. So thank you guys so much for your time. I look forward to your questions later on.